This is a child favorite around the holiday season, and we're talking about my chocolate pudding pie. It's actually a very old classic recipe made around this time of year. I was given this recipe when I went to a party years and years ago, and somebody brought it, and it was like a recipe they got from like a church cookbook or something. And it's been something that I've made for a very long time. I can make this recipe with my eyes shut. And around the holiday season, when you're making fancy things like tiramisu, maybe you're making a jelly roll, maybe you're making a pumpkin pie, they don't tend to be favorites for kids. So you got to think of something that everyone loves, and everyone loves this chocolate pudding pie because it tastes like chocolate pudding but in pie form, and it's sensational. I have a pie crust in the oven baking because you need a pre-made pie crust for this, but I want to also tell you that I've made the same recipe using a graham cracker crust. Phenomenal. So it's really up to you. If you want like a cookie base, you can go that route. If you want more of a pie crust, you just want to bake a pie crust. Get that out of the way, and mine's in the oven. So we're going to work on the pudding portion, which is so simple, and it's using very basic things you may already have on hand. In a large saucepan, you're going to add a combination of all-purpose flour, and this is a trust the process kind of pie. And then you're going to add unsweetened cocoa powder. I use Hershey's. That's typically it's my go-to. It just matters that it's unsweetened and it's just cocoa powder, not hot chocolate mix, because people ask me that all the time. They're not interchangeable. And then you need sugar. Lots of it because this is good. It's good. It's delicious. So it requires a good amount of sugar. There's a lot of very bittersweet chocolate in there, so it's necessary, along with a pinch of salt. And I'm going to just whisk this together because you want to make sure that this mixture is well combined before you add your liquids. Once it looks like that, you're going to go ahead and add in some milk and egg yolks. Get that whisking, and then I'm also going to add in some vanilla. You can see I haven't put it on the stove yet. This is very simple. Once you get it on the stove, I like to do this over like a low burner, like a low heat. And you need to cook this between like 7 to 10 minutes. Once it thickens, because it will thicken within the first minute, it does not mean it's done. It needs to thicken, like I said, for a good, let me tell you, a solid 8 minutes is probably the right ballpark, because if you don't cook this long enough, your pie will never set. It'll be like pudding, and you want it to be set like a custard. So you just need to cook it for long enough for that flour and that cocoa powder to really cook well. The eggs will set once it cools, but you just need to give it some time. So I just cook it, like I said, over medium-low, between 7 to 10 minutes. Right around the 8-minute mark is usually perfect. See how thick that is? That is what you're looking for. And I've been cooking it for about 8 minutes. You want to make sure you do what I'm doing. See how I'm scraping the bottom and the sides of your pot? You got to make sure you do that continuously so you don't burn your custard. Because once the custard burns, there's no going back. 2 tablespoons of butter. And this is going to bring the gloss back to your custard. Mix that in. I have my pie crust ready. I just take a deep dish 9-inch. It can be a frozen one that you bake. It could be a homemade one that you cook. It's totally up to you. As long as it's 9 inches and it's deep dish, you are good. I'm just going to continue to do this until the butter is all melted. I'm actually going to take the heat off anyway because it's been on really low. The residual heat will melt that butter. Add that to that. My pie crust is cool, but you want to do this when the custard is hot, because if the custard begins to cool, it begins to set, and then you won't be able to really get it in there. And now this, the hardest part about this is that it has to go in the fridge to set overnight, and that is your cook's treat, by the way. I like to cover it with plastic wrap, and I like to make sure that the wrap is actually touching the surface of the custard so it doesn't like form that weird film. And once it's done, we'll add our whipped cream. You could do a meringue. The kids in our family just do not like it with a meringue. Yes, it's pretty. I'll use the egg whites for omelets tomorrow, but they want whipped cream and chocolate shavings, which is what I do. So I'm going to cover this, pop it in the fridge until tomorrow. pie was sitting in the fridge overnight. I just topped it with some whipped cream, and I went ahead and took a bar of chocolate and just grated over the top. I did that ahead of time because I had to take a beautiful thumbnail for you. Because once I cut into it, it won't look so perfect. But it is truly perfect every single time. It holds. It doesn't like run all over the place. The texture is perfect. You see how it just like stays? I want it to be I want it to be pudding flavor, but in a firm pie shell with a pie form. You know what I'm saying? It is so heavenly. Make it for New Year's Eve. If you're staying home, especially if you have littles, make it special. It's a great chocolate pie to have all year round anyway, but I just know that you will love it, and it requires ingredients you may already have on hand. And like I said, be creative with the crust. You can use a graham cracker crust, a cookie crust, whatever you have left over. Put it in a food processor with a little bit of butter to bind it, and use that as your base. Go to laurainthekitchen.com for the written recipe. I hope you've enjoyed spending time with me, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.